Hey guys, and welcome back to another Mystery Monday video on my channel. Today's video might be a little bit shorter than the videos that I've been doing lately on this channel, as I'm trying to make them a little bit longer. But this case came to me, and because it is fairly recent, I think that this child deserves to have their name out there as much as possible, and I think this case is very important. And so I just thought that I would cover it anyways, and I think that you guys will still enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Lisa Renee Irwin was born on November 11, 2010 to her two parents, Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin. She was born in Independence, Missouri, and also had two older brothers, one from each of her parents' previous marriages. People who knew the family described them as being generally normal and pretty happy, but they were especially happy once baby Lisa was born. But unfortunately, that would all change just 10 months after this little baby was born into their lives. In the extremely early hours of the morning on October 4th, 2011, Jeremy Irwin would arrive home from work. He was an electrician and was known to work very, very late into the evening, and sometimes it even took him into the mornings of the following day. And when he arrived home from work that day, he found his home in a very strange state. Despite Deborah being home with the three children, all of the lights in the house had been left on and the front door was unlocked. Now, this next piece of information is contradicting depending on the website or the article that I read about it, but some places say that when he arrived at the home, one of the windows had a screen cut out of it, and some of them say that one of the windows had the screen cut out of it and the window was also ajar. Again, finding this a little bit strange and slightly unsettling, he went to check on Deborah, who was in her bed along with their two sons and a stray kitten that I guess the boys had found earlier that day. And following checking on Deborah and the two boys, he went into the baby's room, but to his horror, baby Lisa was not in her crib. And that would be just the beginning to a very long and heart-wrenching case. Now, for anybody who has researched this case before or who has heard about it or just knows anything about it, then you probably know that this case just leaves you with more questions. And because of the lack of information that is given on this case, it has made it very, very difficult to kind of form an opinion on what I think happened, which is rare for me because throughout these videos I usually do develop an opinion, and I kind of like to give you mine closer to the end. But throughout this case, I'm just going to try and stay completely neutral, as I really do not have an opinion on what I think took place. As in most cases like this, when a child disappears under strange circumstances, the parents are looked at very closely by both the media and investigators. But at this point, Deborah was not helping herself out at all. Her stories were really contradicting themselves, and she couldn't decide on what exactly happened that evening. She had originally said that she had checked on baby Lisa at 6:40 p.m. on Monday, October 3rd. She then went outside with her boys and watched them play, and then the three of them came inside and Deborah checked on baby Lisa again at 10:30 p.m. before her and the boys went to bed. But she then backtracked and said that she actually couldn't remember if she had checked on baby Lisa after putting her to bed the first time. Later in the investigation, it had come out that Deborah had put baby Lisa to bed at 6:40 p.m. like she had said, and then her and the two boys had went out the front while the two boys played, and she sat on the front porch drinking and speaking to a neighbor. And then I guess baby Lisa was in her bed at this time sleeping. And the reason that Deborah says that she can't remember if she put baby Lisa to bed and then checked on her again at 10:30 is because by the time she had come in and went to bed with the two boys, she was fairly intoxicated. It was discovered that on top of baby Lisa being missing from the home that evening, the family had three cell phones sitting on the kitchen counter. And when Jeremy arrived home from work, the cell phones were not there. Now, this is something that I think is a key piece of information in this case, so I'm going to come back and talk about these three missing cell phones closer to the end of the video, so just keep them in mind. On October 19th, investigators did a thorough search of the Irwins' home, and they brought cadaver dogs and things like that. And court documents show actually that one of the cadaver dogs picked up a scent in the home. And this scent was picked up right beside Deborah and Jeremy's bed, and the scent was of a dead body. Items that were removed from the home after this search included a multicolored comforter, I believe a purple pair of shorts, a Disney t-shirt, a Cars-themed blanket, a toy glowworm, like a roll of tape, and a tape dispenser. Now, that part of this case really reminds me of the Madeleine McCann case, how the cadaver dogs picked up a scent of a body or remains or something like that in the family home or where the family was staying, and there just isn't really an explanation given to the public about why that is. So that part really reminds me of the Madeleine McCann case, but anyways, Of course, after this, Deborah was being looked at very closely by investigators, and the reason that it was mostly Deborah and not really Jeremy who was being looked at closely by investigators is because Jeremy actually wasn't home that evening. It is confirmed that he was at work until 2:30 and he didn't get home until about between 2:30 and 3. So this was kind of all falling down onto Deborah. After the search was done of the Irwins' home, it then was brought to the public that Deborah had actually done a polygraph test and she had failed. Now, I just want to give a reminder here that polygraph tests aren't always accurate, and people do pass them when they are guilty and people do fail them when they are innocent. In an interview, Deborah had actually said that she was being looked at by investigators because they thought that she had some kind of involvement in her daughter's disappearance. She had also said that they had told her that she failed the polygraph test, just like I was just telling you guys, but that they had actually lied and she had passed the test. Now, this isn't a confirmed bit of information, but I also read somewhere else that the police did in fact lie to, I guess, the public and Deborah about her failing the polygraph test as some kind of tactic to get her to confess. After Deborah did this interview, the couple actually claimed that an anonymous benefactor had come forward and hired them a private investigator and was now offering an $100,000 reward for any information that could lead them to Lisa. And they talked about this very publicly and tried to get it really out there so that if anybody had heard about this, it could hopefully bring some tips in and move them forward in this case. In May of 2012, Deborah and Jeremy phoned police to report that their debit cards were fraudulently used on a website where you can buy fake birth certificates. Now, this is a confirmed fact, and although I'm not really sure what it has to do with the case, I do think that it is very odd to have your infant child go missing and then for somebody to fraudulently use your debit card to try and buy a fake birth certificate. Just a side note here that I want to mention, infants who are usually stolen or kidnapped are not usually murdered, and they are usually taken by somebody who wants a child of their own and for whatever reason can't have one, so they've decided to steal somebody else's child and raise them as their own. So the first theory in this case, as you have probably guessed, is that Deborah had some kind of involvement in Lisa's disappearance. Some people think that she doesn't show any signs of a grieving parent and that she's just been sketchy throughout this case. Some people also think that it is odd that Deborah was sitting outside drinking alcohol while she had a small infant inside asleep. Now, although I do think that this is a questionable parenting move, I just don't think that it screams that she had something to do with her daughter's disappearance. Although the theory goes that maybe she medicated Lisa so that she could have a night off and go and sit on the front porch, or maybe after she came inside to check on Lisa, she was intoxicated, maybe something happened. There's just so many possibilities in this theory, but then somehow Deborah covered it up. The only thing for me that kind of in this theory seems like a red flag is what the cadaver dogs found in the Irwins' home. Now, they picked up that scent right beside Deborah's bed, which is where she would have been sleeping that evening. But after this was made public knowledge, investigators really haven't said anything else about it. They never said anything about the things that they had taken from the home, if they ever found anything, so it really could have been nothing. You never really know. Maybe the dogs picked up a false scent. It's just, there's no real answers to this. But again, I don't really have an opinion on this case, and I also think that one of the reasons that Deborah was the main suspect for so long in this case is because of the lack of evidence pointing elsewhere. After Lisa's disappearance, investigators did interview all of the neighbors and people in the area, including the neighbor who was sitting on the front porch drinking with Deborah. And this neighbor's name was Samantha, and she did say that her and Deborah were sitting on the front porch drinking, and that Deborah went inside at 10:30, but Samantha actually stayed on the front porch talking to another neighbor. And she said that while she sat on the front porch for a couple hours after Deborah had went to bed, she never saw anything strange in the house, and when she went to bed from the front porch into her own home, all of the lights in Deborah and Jeremy's house were off, and it appeared that everybody in the home was asleep. 3 other neighbors said that they had witnessed a man walking around the neighborhood at around 4:10 a.m., which is just after Jeremy would have arrived home from work. And these 3 witnesses said that this man was carrying a baby, and it wasn't just so odd that this man was carrying a baby around at 4 o'clock in the morning, but they said that it was extremely cold that morning, and this man was not dressed for the weather, and the baby appeared to be completely naked despite wearing a diaper. After seeing this man, they said that he entered a yard to one of the homes that was fairly close to where the Irwins' family home was. One of the neighbors who had witnessed this had actually phoned the police even before she knew that Lisa was missing because of just how bizarre she thought it was. She didn't think that a baby should have been out at 4 o'clock in the morning, especially not with nothing on except a diaper, so she said that this just screamed something was wrong to her. But I don't believe that police ever investigated her phone call, and I don't think that they even linked the 2 phone calls until quite a while after she had reported it and quite a while after Lisa had gone missing. Now I'm going to go back and talk about the cell phones that were stolen from the Irwins' home that I mentioned earlier on in this video. Now, of course, investigators wanted to get their hands on these phones and see if there was any evidence within the phones to link them to where Lisa could possibly be. So they tracked down these phones and they pinged fairly close to the Irwin home. Now, I'm not exactly positive about the location where the cell phones were found, but after investigators found them, they did pull phone records, and it showed that there were multiple calls to a woman by the name of Megan Wright. Now keep that name in mind because I'm going to talk about her in just a second, but I just want to talk about right now how the times of the calls have never been made public, so we can't put exactly a timeline together of how these calls took place. Now, Megan Wright, Deborah, and Jeremy had actually never met each other, and they'd never even heard of each other. So all of these strange phone calls being made to Megan's phone by the Irwins' missing cell phones brought another person of interest into the light. This person of interest's name is John Jersey Tanko. Now, Jersey was an ex-boyfriend of Megan's, and he was a homeless drifter who would do odd jobs in the neighborhood for cash. And Megan and him had actually broken up just a couple weeks before Lisa's disappearance. On the night of Lisa's disappearance, Jersey was actually staying in the Irwins' neighborhood. He was staying in one of their neighbors' houses and tending to their lawn while this neighbor was out of town. And oddly enough, the man who the eyewitnesses seen with the baby entered the yard of the house that Jersey actually would have been staying at that evening. And in the lineup, one of the eyewitnesses actually picked out Jersey and said that he was confirmed to be the man that he had seen walking around that night with the naked baby, but the other two eyewitnesses couldn't confirm whether he was or wasn't. Investigators say that they haven't cleared John Jersey Tanko as a suspect, but they also say that he is not a person of interest, and right now he is actually serving time in prison for tampering with a vehicle. Now I'm going to talk about a few other strange things that kind of happened around Lisa's disappearance, but whether or not they are directly linked to Lisa's case is completely unknown. A dumpster in the township's parking lot was actually set on fire at approximately 2:30 a.m. on the night that Elisa was presumably abducted. And in September of 2011, Megan Wright's car was actually set on fire in the exact same parking lot. Burnt baby clothes were also shown to Lisa's parents at some point throughout this investigation, but whether or not they actually belonged to Lisa has not been confirmed. And investigators also searched a landfill that was near the burning dumpster shortly after the dumpster was set on fire, but nothing ever came of this. In October of 2015, during a drug sweep in Rome, investigators actually found a young girl who identified as Maria. And she was living with a couple, and this couple claimed that she was their biological daughter, but DNA tests proved that this was not true. This brought hope to baby Lisa's case, as even investigators thought that there was a good chance that this little girl found in Rome could very well be baby Lisa. But DNA tests were done and they were shown to not be a match, so this little girl's identity still remains unknown, but the FBI are working very hard to identify who this little girl is. This year, a new age progression photo was released to the public of what Lisa Irwin could look like at age 7 or 8. Both Deborah and Jeremy hold out hope that Lisa is out there somewhere alive and will one day return home. Investigators to this day still receive tons and tons of tips on what happened to baby Lisa, but unfortunately none of these have ever led anywhere. Jeremy and Deborah both believe that Lisa is out there somewhere, either being raised by her abductor as their own, or she was sold to somebody else who is raising her under a false identity. So that means that Lisa could very well be out there somewhere right now, living her life normally, thinking that whoever abducted her is her own parent, and she doesn't even know that she has been abducted. And like I said before, that is more common than not in infant abduction cases. Usually people who steal infants, it is for a reason like to raise them as their own or to give them to somebody else to raise as their own. My heart sincerely goes out to all of baby Lisa's loved ones, and I really hope that one day she does return home and is well and ready to start her life with her real family. Like I said, I don't really have a theory on what happened in this case, but I am fairly confident that if baby Lisa was abducted, she is out there somewhere living her life under a false identity and can very well return home at any time. And guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!